You think you know Gandhi? Think again. Mahatma Gandhi is rightly revered as a leader of India's independence movement against British rule and as an advocate of nonviolent resistance. His legacy is also a subject of controversy and debate for several reasons. No historical figure is without complexities. While Gandhi's contributions to India's freedom movement and global peace efforts are undeniable, it's also crucial to engage with the critiques of his life and philosophy. From bizarre practices to controversial beliefs on sexuality and people of color, we're diving deep into the mystery of the Father of the Nation, Time Person of the Year in 1930, and an icon of pacifist activism. Not all of Gandhi's legacy is glowing. Come with us today as we examine a side of Gandhi you probably do not know. Welcome to History on Fleek. Before becoming a political stalwart, Gandhi worked as a lawyer. In 1893, having passed the bar in London, the Mahatma would sail to South Africa and work as a lawyer for civil rights in the country under colonial British rule. It's believed by many that Gandhi's time working in South Africa was formative for him. It would introduce him to a racially divided society and the damage of discrimination. Before arriving in South Africa, Gandhi saw himself a British first and Indian second. His experience of being thrown out of a whites-only train carriage in South Africa left an indelible mark on his worldview. Gandhi would successfully campaign and work diligently for Indian civil rights in South Africa. Yet he would only work for Indian civil rights in South Africa. While he would in later years ultimately develop his views, his work as a young lawyer in South Africa was entirely derogatory towards black South Africans. Gandhi would put in writing racial slurs against South Africans of color, and as damagingly, he would lament that Indians were not considered better than others. While Gandhi's views would develop over time, these early statements have led to criticisms of Gandhi and even protests against his statues in parts of Africa. Religious pluralism and possibilities. Gandhi had a vision for India that was beyond the imagination of many. He would live to see Swaraj, an independent India, something he long advocated. His vision for religious pluralism and a secular society was a vision that would come at an immense cost, despite his remarkable efforts towards it. Despite joining the National Congress in India and becoming its leader not long after in 1920, Gandhi's efforts to unite Hindus and Muslims across India were far from wholly supported. In 1919, his efforts after World War I to bring support around the Turkish Caliph following the Ottoman Empire's loss would unite Sunni Muslims across India. The Caliphate movement was so effective in garnering Muslim support behind Gandhi that it would bring violence between Hindus and Muslims to a temporary halt. Yet this would stir tensions within the Hindu community as supporting the Islamic Caliph. 3 years later in 1922, the Caliphate movement would be abandoned, along with a lot of Muslim support for Gandhi. Following this, life-casting religious riots would outbreak across India's numerous cities. Gandhi was attempting something perhaps impossible. He could unite Muslims and Hindus in the opposition of British colonial rule, and even bring instances of harmony, only raising his stature as a leader. This was always short-lived, and ultimately, Gandhi faced opposition to how exactly the British rule should be opposed. Many saw Gandhi's ideas of Hindus and Muslims being sons of the same soil of India as overly idealistic, that is, trying to appease both communities. He was keeping both in suspicion of himself. An independent India would be granted by the British, and their rule would come to an end. Swaraj was accomplished. Tragically, it would be at the cost of Gandhi's religious pluralist vision. India would be partitioned, and entirely on religious lines. A nation free, a nation divided. In a cruel tale of colonial rule leaving a toxic sting on its tail, India would be partitioned in 1947. Following years of campaigning through India's National Congress during World War II, Gandhi had called for the British to quit India. Yet the All India Muslim League, led by Muhammad Ali Jinnah, would only accept if India was divided. Gandhi is said to have offered a cooperative method between the Muslim League and the India Congress, where partition could be resolved at a later date by vote. It's believed in this united India, Gandhi even offered Jinnah to be its leader. Jinnah rejected all of this, and in response brought Muslims across India to support a proposal for a partitioned India. On August 16, 1946, Direct Action Day would define the direction of the Swaraj. India as a subcontinent would become independent, but it would be divided into a Muslim and non-Muslim state. Though Direct Action Day would show the course to come in terms of India's future, it would also define the bloody tone of matters to come. Calcutta Hindus were victims to their properties being torched, and mass murders would follow. Reprisal came against Muslims across India. Direct Action Day became known as the Week of the Long Knives, as days of pitched battles between Hindus and Muslims across Calcutta cost thousands of lives. Gandhi would not support the partition and never did. And once the partition came into legal effect, Direct Action Day looked like child's play in comparison. Some 10 to 20 million people were displaced in a colossal mass migration, and with the fever-pitch sectarian violence in the air, as many as 2 million lives were lost. Gandhi would once again be remarked as a calming influence after the fact, a voice of unity and reason to bring the riots and violence to an end. Yet many critics do see the grim outpouring of violence and chaos as evidence his approach of nonviolence and ideals of spiritual harmony was more fantasy than a workable reality. That a religiously plural India in harmony was never to be, and no amount of fasting or spinning could remedy this complex socio-cultural gravity. Self-sufficiency, economy, complexity. Gandhi's vision for India was not just confined to breaking free of its colonial shackles and bringing a degree of religious harmony. He also contended a view that independence was as much needed for the population as it was for the state. One of his most substantial campaigns was the Swadeshi policy. Under this movement, in the name of Indian independence, people were encouraged to boycott foreign-made goods. Spinning wheels became highly popular across the country as people began to make their clothing from home. The movement reached its height in 1921, when Gandhi pledged the boycott through burning 150,000 English cloths at the Elphinstone Mill compound in Mumbai. This was all in the name of bringing not only India free from English rule, but as importantly, to take India's villages into self-sufficiency and self-reliance. Yet clothing was just a start. Gandhi envisaged that a decentralized nation on an economic level was key to India's success. To bring a greater quality of living to the masses, Gandhi believed villages across the subcontinent needed to be self-sufficient. On an economic level, Gandhi wanted villages to grow their own crops and cotton for cloth, and therefore they could sustain their consumption. All houses were to be built with locally found materials, and care for water supplies and their cleanliness was to be the duty of the people who lived there. While this decentralized village and self-sufficiency would without a doubt bring a degree of empowerment to impoverished communities, the vision is not without its flaws. Many critics of the Gandhian self-sufficiency vision outline the regression of such a vision. Outside of caring for and sustaining the village, there is no room for growth or development beyond safeguarding against poverty. There is also a complex and dangerous matter of entirely empowering villages. Tribalism and caste prejudices from antiquity can still be a matter of life and death in India to this day. Human rights are still an incredibly fragile matter under the weight of sectarian tensions in the region even now. Gandhi's vision did not account for this, and for many, still appears unsuitable for a layered, complex modern nation. Nonviolence and its negation. One of the more surprising critiques of Gandhi is his approach of ahimsa. The principle of nonviolent civil disobedience is among the many strands of Gandhi's work that led him to international recognition. His doctrine of nonviolence worked many principles under satyagraha, including fearlessness, truth, equal respect for all religions, non-possession, and controlling one's desires. This principled, nonviolent approach to societal problems would inspire the civil rights movement during the 50s and 60s in the United States. It would also inspire Nelson Mandela's work in South Africa in later decades. Sadly, it may go without saying, but Gandhi was following this vision in a landscape of violence. His ahimsa was only noble, and his work on more than one occasion would bring violent rioting to a close, but rarely did it ever stop violence from unfolding. A key example is the non-cooperation movement, an effective strategy to counter the subjugation of British rule, but not one without a severe cost. Starting on the 4th of September 1920, Gandhi encouraged Indians to pull out of any British-run labor and no longer buy any British goods. This movement would last across the best part of a year, as the British were shaken by the scale and effect of the revolt. However, the British authorities were not consigned to nonviolence. On February 4, 1922, British police officers opened fire on protesters at a local bazaar in Chari Chari. 3 people were killed from the gunfire, and in response, a police station with 25 people inside was burnt to the ground in retaliation. Once again, Gandhi's vision of nonviolence, of pacifism, would be undone by flares of passion and violence, not only by colonial rule but by reprisal as well. The criticism isn't to say that ahimsa isn't the way or isn't ideal, but in a landscape of complexity, ridden by poverty and subjugation, it is perhaps limited and to a degree impractical. Celibacy and controversy. The man known to many as the father of the nation in India was adamant that sexuality was only for procreation, that both men and women should avoid having sex as it was merely a matter of lust. Even within a loving marriage, Gandhi was clear that women should resist their husbands, and husbands should negate what he described as animal passion. However, despite a long avowed pronouncement of his own celibacy, Gandhi may just have had an obsession with it, and that obsession tipped into something less than healthy. Some commentators have observed Gandhi built his celibacy through some frankly bizarre practices by today's standards. He is alleged to have arranged to sleep in the nude alongside women to test and develop his sexual control and patience. Now, while there is no account of any sexual activity, the lack of boundaries and appropriation is nearly staggering from such a sainted figure. The women Gandhi would sleep next to included underage girls, and even his grandniece when he was 78. In today's eyes, this would be called abuse. This strange dyad hangs over Gandhi as a figure. He could speak so openly of women being important to the world for them to gain positions of power in politics and matters economic. He would also say that women should ultimately be the masters of their destinies. Yet, his practices in relationship to his ironclad view on celibacy leave a lot to be desired. This is History on Fleek, and we'll see you next time.